Thanks for tuning in. Again, this is Gordie Tamayo, Brandon Stubbs, and Steve Gallegos with TheTitleFight.com. Coming back at you after a great night of boxing last night. HBO had their card pretty stacked from start to finish here on two bouts that really entertained us last night with some stuff on the good end, and then we had some dramatics to cap it off. As usual, never seems to fail you in the world of boxing. Kicking it off, we had Adonis Stevenson coming up against Chavez-Cloud in a fight that fight fans were kind of going a little bit back and forth about. Adonis Stevenson coming back and defending his title for the first time after a one-punch knockout of Chad Dawson, and people were still kind of on the fence about him, whether or not that was just a lucky punch or whether or not he was the legitimate champion and be carrying that strap. And yesterday he seemed to make a case for himself. Brandon, what was your impression of his overall performance last night? He came in, seemed to be in dominant control, and his confidence was on cloud 9 yesterday. No pun intended on that. And what was your opinion of how Stevenson came through and dominated Cloud last night?
He really showed his growth as a boxer, and that was something that I think really amazed and kind of shocked a lot of us watching the fight. Was he kind of seemed like a complete fighter. He wasn't just a guy who can go in and slug. He actually showed he can box, which kind of now adds a new wrinkle into his game that now you have to prepare for going forward of Stevenson actually being able to box. He fought really a complete and total fight. Chavez-Cloud is a very game fighter. Is he maybe a top-tier fighter? No, but for what the division is, he's one of the better in the division. And Adonis did what exactly he needed to do. He just went out, outworked him, just seemed so much faster, so much crisper, and just flat out, like I said, showed that boxing skill, boxing IQ that we really didn't know that he had going into a bout like this. So it really makes things intriguing for him in the future, showing, that new wrinkle and showing that he can be a complete boxer when he needs to.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think that totally threw off Tavoris' game plan, and credit to one of the commentators last night. I believe it was Roy Jones that commentated on it, that they must have did their homework and studied really well on the Hopkins bout, because they went in there and really did box a really smart fight where he really didn't take any kind of punishment in return. He was dishing it out pretty well, though, and Tavoris was just in La La Land wondering how the hell to get inside and really just couldn't find his mark. Steve, one of your favorite characters in the whole boxing realm, Don King, who promotes Cloud, he's one of his last warriors on his roll here, his payroll. Is this the end of Don King, or we still got something left in Cloud? We're going to see him come back. What do you think?
I really can't say. I think it is the end of the road for Don King Productions. Tavoris Cloud showed some flashes of brilliance, but over his last 3 fights, he just seemed really flat. Even in the win against Gabriel Campillo, which he started out strong, he was clearly outboxed and got away with a gift decision. Bernard Hopkins, obviously took him to school, in a very dominant boxing performance. And I thought, I gave Cloud a real good chance to win last night going into the fight. And I thought, if he was able to, close the distance, get in there, pound away, and get some shots in, I think he would have been able to take Stevenson out. But however, that wasn't the case. Once again, he looked lost, flat, and didn't look like he wanted to be there. And Stevenson, just put on a clinic. Stevenson, surprised a lot of us. The jury was still out on Adonis Stevenson as whether or not, that one-punch knockout of Chad Dawson was a fluke or if he was the real deal. We obviously know now he is the real deal. And as the fight went on, we were thinking, okay, Cloud's corner's obviously going to do something about it. They're going to stop it here soon, and sure enough, they did. So, the spirit of Emmanuel Stewart lives on, and his prophecy was correct because he did, as Max Kellerman stated, that he did say to Stevenson, before he died, that if you're ever to get in the ring with both Dawson and Cloud, jump on it immediately because you're going to knock both of them out. And he clearly did that. So, Don Stevenson, the true legitimate light heavyweight champion. So, a lot of good matchups in the future. I can see a good matchup. You can see a matchup with Hopkins should he get past Marat, or we can see him fight, the winner, Boutin and Pascal.
Yeah, definitely. He's got a lot of on his plate right now. There were some interesting matchups thrown around post-fight interview. Brandon, I know you had talked about the winner of Boutte and Pascal, which obviously would be a great bout, being that Stevenson is, from upper in that area where they put him up for his fight cards, the majority of them, and then he would be a better draw out there with the Canadian crowd, of course. One of the ones that has been really building some buzz and some tension is Kovalev. Sergey Kovalev, and when the thought was thrown out there, Stevenson's first reply was, well, he needs to fight some of the champions before he steps in the ring with me. What was your perception of that response from Stevenson? Is that a little hesitancy in stepping in the ring with the known power puncher like Kovalev, or does he have some grounds to be stating what he said?
No, that was a ducking comment. There's just no gray area about that. That was him pretty much saying, yeah, I want this guy to fight somebody else, and hopefully he loses before I have to fight him. I don't think he's going to fight Kovalev unless he's some sort of mandatory or they throw a ridiculous lot of cash at him. The fight that's going to make the most sense, that can make the most money and be the least, damaging or maybe the easier win for him is going to be the winner of the Pascal Boutte fight. It'll be an all-Canadian affair. It would do massive numbers up there. It would be huge for them. It would be like their one, but Canadian version. Mm-hmm. So, it would be huge up there for them, for that realm. As far as boxing goes as a whole, it wouldn't be that big of a deal for us, but it would be major in Canada, and he would get paid ridiculous money. So that's why I think that will be the next fight he'll take. He's going to steer away from Kovalev as much as he can. I think that's something he doesn't want. I think a lot of people see Kovalev as pretty much as being the next stop to really rule that division. And like I said, people are going to do whatever they can in their power to avoid him.
Mm-hmm. Well, moving on to the next main event here that kicked off in about that, you can, comically speaking, you can predict that this guy's going to be fighting at light heavyweight pretty soon. Son of the legend, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., came in against rugged veteran here, and Brian Vera, in a bout that, had you scratching your head, but almost not really surprised. Brian Vera, props to the guy, came to fight, pushing the fight the whole entire fight, was pushing the bigger man back like he stated, did what he thought he had to do, and he really was giving Chavez a run for his money here. But in the end, as maybe was as expected, sadly enough, Chavez pulls out a decision. Brandon, go ahead, pull the gloves off on this one. What's your opinion on what took place last night, leading up to the fight as well, with Chavez, like as I stated before, acting like a 7-year-old kid who loves cake, just couldn't make a wait until the last minute where they put on agreed upon catch weight, and then give them some extra money to cushion it off, and away they go and fight.
The whole build-up and everything around is just comical. You had it first contractually being at 160, then it went to being 168, then 173. You had it being a 12-round fight, then it got changed 4 days before the fight to a 10-round bout. It was just as a whole that, Chavez Jr.'s handlers and Top Rank, I just got to shake my head at them for really condoning and letting this kind of stuff happen. And, for Vera, he got paid nicely, for taking these concessions. He knew the card was going to be stacked against him, but he went out and he fought a good fight for him, maybe one of the better performances I've seen him put on as a pro. I honestly had him winning 6 rounds to 4. I don't see how anyone could see Chavez winning 8 rounds. I just didn't see it. I don't see that at all. I could possibly see a draw. I could maybe give someone that, but I don't see how in the world Chavez Jr. won that fight of being a unanimous decision. And I got to give credit to HBO and Jim Lampley, who actually made a comment of, I guess this happens when you're the money fighter. Mm-hmm. What he was pretty much saying with that was, Chavez Jr.'s name holds weight, can make Top Rank a lot of money, so this kind of stuff is going to happen, which is sad, but I'm so glad that, someone on the actual broadcast for that network actually aired it out and said that, which was a good look. But as a whole, Chavez Jr. looked awful, and whoever he fights next is going to eat him alive.
Yeah, the guy just looked horrible after the second round. He was already huffing wind, and it was obvious that he didn't take this fight very serious at all. He didn't think that Vera was a serious, opponent in the ring there, which he was, and he was totally wrong about that. He looked surprised that some of the shots he landed, Vera was still walking through them. And, 12 rounds later, he was still there shaking him off, smiling. He only caught him maybe once or twice where he really shook him. But, going forward, post-fight interview, They said he was going to plan on sticking at 168. His camp has been a tumultuous one, contrary to what he said in the interview. From what it was circulating around, Freddie Roach actually isn't working with them because of the fact that he can't be on time and can't really take training serious. Not because they just decided otherwise for this camp and was going to have his pops in the corner. Because that obviously didn't really do too much good for him. Steve, with Chavez remaining in the 168-pound division here, what do you see taking place for him here within the next bout? Obviously, he's going to have to reshape up things a little bit. Things are going to have to go through a major revamp. Is he going to get back Roach? Is he going to get back Oriza? What's going to happen here?
Well, obviously, after that performance and the way he handled himself prior to the fight, I don't think Freddie Roach should have any part of Chavez, Roach pretty much said Chavez got to prove that, he's serious and that he's taking training seriously. Obviously, he hasn't. His conditioning was horrible. So, in terms of what happens next for him, his stock drops dramatically again. Whoever he fights at 168, obviously Top Rank is not going to match him against one of the top-tier fighters because they're going to eat him alive, just like Brandon said. They're going to feed him another tomato can, someone he can pat his record against, so he's not going to face any top-level opposition. Top Rank's is protecting their cash cow right now, which is Chavez Jr. I really can't say. The future's not looking bright for Chavez, he really needs to rededicate himself to the sport because, like I said, his conditioning was horrible. He was relying on his power in this fight. He could not hurt Vera. And like I said, when we were watching this fight, what's going to happen when he realizes he can't hurt Vera? Then what's going to happen, and if he doesn't get him out, within the middle rounds, his conditioning is going to take its toll. And he's going to run out of gas, and you saw that. After he rocked him at the end of the seventh round, that was his best money punch right there, and he walked right through it. Mm-hmm. After that, Chavez just 1-2 shots at a time. He started looking for help from the referee, which I thought was horrible. Complaining about being hit low, and his trunks were obviously really high. Complaining about headbutts, And Chavez got away with a few illegal shots of his own while the referee was looking the other way. So, he performed horribly. He should be ashamed of himself. The way he said in the post-fight interviews, it was very horrible. This whole spectacle is horrible. He's putting himself less and less in demand. So, he's basically a famous name. That's all he is at this point.
Yeah, I think he's kind of drowning himself at this point in time. He's creating all these out-of-ring antics that kind of filter back into the ring. Obviously, he didn't perform up to par yesterday. Props again to Brian Vera. Unfortunately, I don't think it's a go with this guy with doing what he wanted to do and getting a possible rematch. But, giving him a little bit of shine for what he did. Brandon, what do you think's going to go forward with him? Does this land him another, at least put him in the running at least for HBO to say, hey, yeah, this guy demands or is worthy of an HBO slot somewhere down the line? Do you think something like that's possible for him?
Absolutely. I think something like that's definitely possible. It may not be, main eventing a card, but he could be, a co-feature on a Boxing After Dark card. Why not? In his case, he showed that he could fight with a bigger name there in the sport and really in the middleweight / super middleweight division. He showed that he can hang in there and he can bang with him. Mm-hmm. It makes sense for him to see if his management, his team can angle for him to get a co-feature bout, a special attraction fight there on HBO and not digress and backpedal and be back on Friday night fights here come this winter. So you really hope for a guy like him that is something that does kind of springboard him and gets him a better matchup and gets him a little bit more limelight on that broader spectrum and that bigger stage of HBO.
On to the next subtopic here. We got a bout in the works here. Brandon, I know you're particularly excited about this one, being that you get to go and be live covering this fight here over in Orlando for Miguel Cotto versus Delvin Rodriguez coming up. Slowly this bout's starting to build some talk, and people are starting to pay more closer attention, seeing how Cotto's coming into tip-top form. There's photos released recently on Cotto's training, and the guy's looking cut. He's looking like he's back in beast mode, learning how to go back to that body and go back to that signature style of fighting that brought him up to stardom and got fans really jumping on top of his wagon there. So, Brandon, what's your perception so far of how training's been going for these guys? I know we haven't heard a whole lot from Delvin yet. Still waiting on hear back for an interview on that part there, but we've gotten to kind of pay attention a little bit on what's going on with Cotto there. He looked like he's taking this bout serious, and he's going to become an animal status come Saturday night.
It's a possibility. It's a very good possibility of that. Anytime that you take on a new trainer, you're gonna have your wrinkles. You're gonna have your mixed executions and your communication issues. But you got to wonder how well Freddie Roach is going to work with him. If it turns into a dogfight, if the fight gets close, how their communication is going to link up from when they were in camp. So it's got a lot of question marks going into this fight on how that relationship's going to work out. He does look better in camp now over the last couple of weeks than what he looked earlier in camp, because we've heard a lot of weird rumors and things coming out of there that he looked just flat out awful. Mm-hmm. So you kind of hope that all that is now behind him. It was just maybe early camp jitters, just like I said, just getting with a new trainer and being in a new place that kind of threw things off for him to where he didn't look like his normal self. So you got to hope that now that's passing, that he can focus and he can be ready for this bout. This is an interesting fight for him because it's called Reloaded. It's kind of their hashtag here for the fight, and it's pretty much a make-or-break fight for either man. I mean, Cotto loses, his career's done. There's really nowhere to go from here. Delvin loses, unfortunately, all that he's built up over the last year and a half since that Trout loss has now goes down the tubes, and he's going to be back where he was. Like I said, before the Trout fight, he's going to be back to having to build himself back up with him a contender again. So it's a lot riding on the line for both these men, and I think that's why they're going to probably go out and fight one of the best fights either of these men have ever fought in their entire lives.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. I'm going to save the predictions on this one, fellas, for leading up a little bit into the week here, just so we can kind of get a little bit more time to check out what's going on in camp with both these guys leading up into fight week here. Things are going to be building up this week, so we'll kind of save a little bit of that for a couple days from now. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Again, this is Gordie Tamayo, Steve Gallegos, Brandon Stubbs for TheTitleFight.com. Signing off. Have a good one.